Hello, this is Dodie from Deliberate Aging. Welcome to my podcast. Have you heard the latest news about alcohol? It turns out that it's not good for us, not even red wine. And to be fair, this isn't exactly new information. The health risks of alcohol have been known for quite some time, but recently it's been making more headlines. Now, we've all heard that heavy drinking isn't good for us, but for years, studies suggested that moderate alcohol use, especially red wine, might actually be beneficial for heart health. And I'll admit, I was a bit confused when a new study in January of 2025 came out linking alcohol to an increased risk of cancer. So let's take a step back and look at the research over time to understand how our knowledge of alcohol's effects have evolved. So let's start in the 1990s, the birth of the alcohol is healthy myth. For decades, many believed that drinking in moderation, especially red wine, could be good for your health. This belief largely stemmed from a 1997 study that followed nearly 500,000 people over 9 years. The findings suggested that men who drank at least one alcoholic beverage per day had a 40% lower risk of heart disease, while women saw a 30% reduction. On top of that, overall death rates appeared to be lowest among those who had one drink per day. And there was the famous French paradox. Researchers noticed that despite eating rich, fatty foods, the French had lower rates of heart disease, and they attributed this to red wine consumption. This theory took off in the 1990s and reinforced the idea that moderate drinking could have health benefits. But was that research really accurate? Over time, scientists began to poke holes in these early studies. It turns out that the supposed benefits of alcohol may have been due to other factors, like diet, exercise, wealth, access to health care, and overall lifestyle choices. The French, for example, tend to walk more and eat healthier diets, which likely contributed to their lower heart disease rates, not the wine. So when researchers adjusted for these factors, they found no real protective effect from alcohol. In fact, even moderate drinking has now been linked to increased risks of high blood pressure and coronary artery disease. Dr. Corey Leone, a family physician, put it plainly. The medical community was always a little skeptical of the message that alcohol could be good for your health. The reason? Many of the early studies suggesting alcohol had health benefits were based on weak evidence rather than solid, high-quality research. So now let's move to 2016, where alcohol is officially linked to cancer. The science around alcohol took a major turn. The U.S. Surgeon General released a report confirming that alcohol is a carcinogen, meaning it increases the risk of cancer. The report linked alcohol to several types of cancer, including breast, oral, esophageal, laryngeal, pharyngeal, liver, colon, and rectal. Even just one drink per day was shown to increase the risk of breast cancer. This finding aligned with research from the National Cancer Institute, which also confirmed that alcohol consumption causes multiple types of cancer. At the same time, newer studies debunked the idea that alcohol had any real health benefits for older adults. Instead, drinking at any level was increasingly linked to health risks such as depression, liver disease, and kidney problems. Dr. Timothy Namey, an alcohol researcher, summed it up. Alcohol is a carcinogen and contributes to about 50 different causes of death. The bottom line, when it comes to alcohol, less is definitely better. So now fast forward to today. By January 2025, the conversation around alcohol had shifted again. The U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, issued a major advisory linking alcohol to an even higher risk of cancer. Alarmingly, alcohol is now recognized as the third leading preventable cause of cancer in the U.S., behind only smoking and obesity. Yet, fewer than half of Americans are aware of this. To raise awareness, the Surgeon General recommended that alcoholic beverages come with warning labels, similar to those found on cigarettes. These labels would highlight the cancer risk and make it clear that no amount of alcohol is truly safe. However, since adding new warning labels requires congressional approval, it's unclear if this will ever actually happen. But at the same time, a major study in JAMA Network Open analyzed data from over 135,000 adults aged 60 and older. Researchers tracked participants' drinking habits and health outcomes over time. The conclusion? Moderate drinking does not improve health, but reducing alcohol intake can. So, how much alcohol is actually safe? Well, that's the big question, and unfortunately, there's no clear answer. Health experts agree that excessive drinking is harmful, but when it comes to moderate or social drinking, the science is murkier. Some experts argue that the social benefits of having a drink with friends, laughter, conversation, connection, could offset some of the risks. Others say that even occasional drinking carries health dangers, especially for older adults. But one thing we do know, alcohol affects people differently depending on their age. Older adults have a lower tolerance for alcohol, and because aging is associated with higher inflammation levels in general, drinking can make things worse. So the general recommendation, avoid excessive drinking, which is defined as more than 2 to 3 drinks per day. Social drinking, a few drinks per week, especially in social settings, is probably okay, but less is definitely better when it comes to alcohol and long-term health. So now for my personal experience. I consider myself a social drinker. When I go out for dinner, I'll usually have a glass of wine or two. And I decided I would try dry January. A month without alcohol. I figured, why not? The new research made me curious to see how it would feel. And honestly, it was harder than I expected. Not because I missed drinking, but because I didn't know what to order at restaurants. I don't drink soda, so I struggled to find an alternative. It made me realize just how much I relied on alcohol in social situations. I wasn't able to do a fully dry January, but I did a damp January, cutting my alcohol intake significantly. And I have to say, I felt so much better after nights out. No headaches, no sluggishness the next morning. That was eye-opening for me. Since then, I continued to limit my alcohol intake, though I haven't cut it out completely. I'm taking it one decision at a time based on how I feel. So, how about you? Are you trying to cut back on alcohol? If so, what motivated you to make that change? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment and let's talk about it. Thanks for listening. This is Dodie from Deliberate Aging. Until next time, be well, friends. This podcast is presented solely for informational and educational purposes only. Use of information from this podcast is at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of your physician or other qualified professional. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from use of this podcast.